Hi everyone, it's me Gaming Do, and today we're talking about not one, not two, not three, but 10. Yes, 10 horrible Loud House episodes. As today I am doing a second remake to my top least favorite Loud House episodes of all time. This is the 2022 edition. Since I last did this video in 2018, there's been a lot of episodes that have come out and some that have definitely made the list. I would say a majority as good as the early seasons are. Most of the worst episodes of the show are in the earlier seasons, even though overall I think the earlier seasons are better as a whole. The worst episodes probably unfortunately did come from that era. But there's a couple that are season 4 and onward. And, well, why don't we just get started with this top 10 worst Loud House episodes 2022 edition. There is one sole reason I am putting Schooled in the top 10. To me personally, in terms of pure quality, this probably isn't even the top 20 worst episodes for me, but it makes it to the top 10 for one single reason. It's the episode that made me realize this show is going downhill. It was enough bad stuff to make me realize, wow, this show is not the same anymore. From the stupid Canada jokes to the really dumb song that Lincoln sings in the episode to just Mr. Bolhoffner's disgusting class in that episode, Lori adjusting to college is kind of cringeworthy and repeats the same joke. And speaking of cringeworthy, Lenny going to Lily's preschool is cringeworthy too. Now, there are some positives with this episode, like I think it's pretty inoffensive and it has a handful of funny moments, but for the most part, Schooled is an episode that just makes me realize we're out of the era where this show is amazing. I just want to start off by saying this. Every single character, with the exception of Lincoln, is super dislikable in this episode. And honestly, I didn't realize that until relatively recently when I rewatched this episode. Yes, Save the Date has officially made my top 10 worst episodes of the show now. And, well, here's why. Like I said, the main reason why is because everyone except Lincoln is dislikable. To start, the boys in Lincoln's lunchroom basically harp on him about how Ronnie Ann has a crush on him and their boyfriend and girlfriend. Then Lincoln explains how they're not. He says maybe something kind of harsh, but then Ronnie Ann goes and cries like a baby. And then the worst character in this episode is encountered when Lincoln gets home. If people have only seen this episode, I would get why you wouldn't like Lori Loud. Overall, I like her as a character, but in this episode, what the hell is wrong with her? She's psychotic. She basically goes psychotic because Ronnie Ann cries and tells her brother, and then Bobby breaks up with Lori thinking blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what to think about that, but Lori the psychopath threatens to pick up probably something that weighs 100 pounds or more, this huge stand thing with a phone on it, and throwing it at Lincoln unless he makes a date with Ronnie Ann. And then they go on a date, and a bunch of boring stuff happens. And then Bobby, who probably was one of the few times that I actually don't like him at all, I think he's pretty insufferable, just like Lori. And Clyde, honestly, he's pretty weird too in this episode. So, to make a long story short, Save the Date just has pretty much everyone except Lincoln in a very dislikable way. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Ronnie Ann is probably the second most likable character in this episode. Clyde's not very likable, and I hate Lori and Bobby in this episode. And if you heard that, that's my Alexa, so excuse me for a second. But let's get back on into it. Why don't we just go on to the number 8 spot? Because I hate this episode. Lincoln was delivered by the First Lady of the United States. I think that is a huge crock of shit, which is actually exactly what I think about this episode. Not Allowed is probably the stupidest episode of the entire series. I don't know what to say. All the sisters' stupid stories about how Lincoln was born, basically. It's just all stupid. And the ending apparently were the real thing that happened, where Lincoln was delivered in the president's limo and the first lady delivered him. It makes absolutely no freaking sense. What the hell is wrong with the writers in this episode? I don't know. But honestly, if you want to watch a Loud House episode that is going to make you lose brain cells, this is the one. This episode is one of the worst episodes of the show, mainly because it makes no damn sense. This is probably the one episode nobody would have expected to make the list at all, but it did. Coming in at number 7 is Friday Night Fights. I think this is the worst episode of Season 5, yes, even worse than Schooled. And that has to do with a couple things, but in general, the two characters that team up in this episode, the two sisters, are my least favorite siblings of the Loud siblings. With Lynn being my absolute least favorite and Lisa being my second to least favorite. So, automatically, I did not get good impressions of this episode and was not looking forward to it at all. When I watched it wasn't what I was expecting. It was way freaking worse. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Lisa was the worst character of the two in this episode. Basically putting her dumb statistics into the football games, and it's just... why? What the hell? This is another episode that's just... it's dumb, it's stupid, it's got two of my least favorite characters basically centering around them, so of course I'm gonna dislike this episode. And just... Lisa is probably at her absolute worst, in my opinion, in this episode, and it's just... it's unpleasant to watch, honestly. Man, do I want to forget about this episode. Coming in at number 6 is Don't You Forget About Me. What the hell did you do to Lenny? The sister who is supposed to have a heart of gold. She may be a little bit airheaded and stuff like that, but she has a heart of gold. This certainly doesn't showcase that. This showcases Lenny as being extremely selfish and willing to ruin Lori's future. Yeah, that's totally the character I love to watch. And that's my main issue with the episode, Lenny. Lenny is super dislikable in this episode, basically trying to ruin Lori's future, ruin her chances of getting into Fairway University, and it's hard to watch, especially since 90% of the time, Lenny is really likable, even to this day, but this episode is so bad, in my opinion, that it might have bumped her from my number one favorite sibling. I really gotta think that through, but this episode, it's so hard to watch. It's terrible. It's disgusting. But it doesn't quite make the top 5. But what does make the top 5? Well, you'll have to see in 1 second. Just a little bit of an advance notice. We're getting thunderstorms right now as I'm recording, so if you hear some thunder, I'm sorry about that. It's not going to be really loud yet, but if you hear thunder, I'm sorry. But what I'm not sorry for is ripping this episode a new ass. Coming in and bringing us into the top 5 is no such luck. No such luck. What can I say about this episode that hasn't been said before? How about that it's not my least favorite episode of the show, like a lot of people? If this is not the least favorite, it's definitely in the top 2 for most people, but it's at my number 5 spot. What do I hate about this episode? Pretty much what everyone else hates. The bad luck bullshit, the whole family being unlikable, from them not letting Lincoln go to the movies, to not letting him go to the beach, and especially kicking him out of the house and making him sleep outside like a freaking dog. But wait a second. All my dogs sleep inside. All my dogs get their own room. So they're treating Lincoln worse than a freaking animal. God, I hate the Loud family in this episode. Oh my god. And we can't forget who starts all this bullshit. Lynn Loud. Oh my god, is Lynn freaking insufferable in this episode. But you'd think maybe Lincoln is kind of likable in this episode since you feel so bad for him. Well, he's not exactly the most innocent character either, as he takes advantage of the bad luck at first. So, nobody's likable in this episode. And with that, that is definitely a reason why this episode is in my top 5 least favorite episodes. Just a little bit of a spoiler warning. This episode is going to be the direct next episode that gets a review on my channel. So stay tuned for that, probably the first week of September. But for now, you're going to hear my basic opinion of it on this list. It is my 4th least favorite episode of the show and my least favorite special of the show. I hate this episode. And it comes down to pretty much the same problem as No Such Luck. Everyone is dislikable. But especially the sisters. They basically steal Lincoln and Clyde's spotlight. And let's face it, they're not really interested in going to an Ace Savvy convention until they hear that they might be in a movie. So the actual fans of Ace Savvy are basically punished in this episode, but the sisters get off scot-free. Yeah, that's totally lovely. God, I hate this episode, and if it was erased out of existence, the world would be a truly better place if we didn't have the episode Kings of the Con. I just want to let you guys know something. Lincoln did not clog the toilet. Lincoln did not clog the toilet. So why did he get punished? Coming in at number 3, bringing us into the top 3, probably the most infamously satanic episodes in my opinion. This starts with number 3, Sleuth or Consequences. Words can't describe how much I loathe this episode and want to see it being roasted like a luau. if that makes any sense. But I really hate this episode. And it comes down to the fact that pretty much all the sisters, with one exception being Lucy, are super dislikable. And they basically laugh at Lincoln's Ace Savvy costume. Ha 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 ha, funny. Somebody's creative in the family for once. And then they all blame Lincoln for clogging the toilet. Of course it's Lincoln, because who else would you frickin' blame? Not like, I hate to get disgusting, Lynn couldn't have done it, because it's not like she has to... How do I put this nicely? It's not like she has to poop all the time. Oh no, it couldn't have been Lynn. Or it couldn't have been Lucy, who was trying to hide her freaking secret away from everybody and flush the princess pony down the toilet. No, it couldn't have been her. Or how about Lola, who probably would like that and is lying? I bet you Lola threatened Lucy and told her if she didn't take the blame, she'd hurt her. I'm just kidding about that, but anyways, moving on. This episode is just so damn dislikable, it's not even funny. I hate this episode, and Lincoln basically gets punished for nothing. Lincoln gets punished for being freaking good in this episode, for doing something good. That's what I hate most. It's not like he's neutral, he did something good in this episode. He basically took the blame for Lucy and then he got grounded. What a crock of shit this episode is. It's not as bad as the top two, but good God, I hate this episode so damn much. It's actually a much closer call than you'd think between number 2 and 1, and at a time, I almost put this at number 1. Coming in as my second to least favorite Loud House episode of all time, it is Making the Case. This is only the 4th segment of the entire series, and it's one of the worst. Holy shit, is this episode bad. So, the basic reason why is sort of what's wrong with Kings of the Con and No Such Luck. Every single character is dislikable. But crank that up to 10,000 in this episode, where everyone makes my fucking skin crawl in this episode. Excuse my French, I apologize for saying the F word, but good God, does this episode frustrate me. Let's start off with the whole concept. Lincoln basically wants to take over Hamster Cam. So, what is he willing to do? He's willing to show embarrassing videos of his sisters. Of course the sisters are mad, but, well, they go a little bit overboard. And by a little bit, I mean extremely overboard. With my least favorite part being Lucy saying, "I have no brother." And then Luann, the hypocrite, decides to tell them, never use content without their permission, basically. And it's just stupid. What the hell? I mean, what else can I say? This is generally probably behind No Such Luck and Brawl in the Family as one of the worst episodes of the show, and I can definitely say this is my second to least favorite episode of the show. This episode can go die in a fire for all I care. I hate this episode, but not as much as number 1. Oh, I can't believe I had to talk about this satanic episode again. Oh no. Here we go. We gotta talk about this episode again. I better get my composure before I talk about number 1. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, I gotta talk about this episode again. Okay, Gaming Dude, keep your composure. I know you gotta talk about this satanic episode. Yep, coming in at my number one is obviously Brawl in the Family. I have talked about this episode to hell and back. So let me just say basically the same thing I've said a million times. This episode is dumb with its sister fight protocol that makes absolutely no sense. It's disgusting where Lincoln basically has to take a crap in a bucket because, oh, Lenny's mad and has to go into the bathroom to cool off. And then just everything about this episode is stupid. Lincoln basically has to butt out of their situation, even if it affects his life. Like, basically, they take over his room, they take his bed sheets without his permission, and he's supposed to butt out. No, you tell your sisters, hey, give me my bed sheets back, and then I'll butt out. And then if they get angry at him, you know what I would do? I would go tell the parents. But the parents are freaking pansies in this episode and basically bow down to the effing sisters. This episode just enrages me and makes me want to freaking punch a hole through my wall. But I can't do that because that's wrong. Just like this freaking satanic episode. I hate this episode more than any episode in the entire show, and I would argue that this is worse than episodes of other cartoons. Like, the worst episode of SpongeBob, A Pal for Gary, the worst episode of Family Guy, Seahorse Seashell Party, and the worst episode of The Simpsons, Lisa Goes Gaga. So many episodes that are terrible are nowhere near as bad as this. What I would put as the king of bad episodes of all of cartoons. Yes, guys. I consider this episode worse than cartoons like Ren Seeks Help or Mr. Pickles or something like that. Those are gross, but this is just brought down of all logic and just has so much dumb hypocrisy to it that it's something I don't know if I'm ever going to talk about again because of how much it pisses me off. So, after this, I think I am done talking about Brawl in the Family. Fuck this episode. You know what? Yes, I saved it till the end, but I said the F word. I dearly apologize. Screw this episode, and I don't think I'm ever going to watch this episode again after this. So, in conclusion, Brawl in the Family, goodbye. And that's about it, guys. I hope you guys like this new top 10 least favorite Loud House episodes. The next Loud House review is going to be of one of the picks on this list in Kings of the Con. I hope you like that. It's coming pretty soon, and that's it. Gaming Do here. See you later. Bye.